Oh, they do want the pop and perch. That one's not as big though. I thought he was as big. Male. Think that one wanted it? Oh, so I threw it off the tip of that little bit of hay grass there. Just popping it real slow, and the fish is probably on a bed. Maybe not right there, but I probably called her from a distance. I saw the grass moving. There's another nice one. Through 3.5, 4. Not big enough for the camera, huh? We'll get a big one eventually. If the only 2 bites we've gotten today are decent ones, though. There's got to be a big one somewhere in here. When you have something like that, a point of grass and stuff there, I fired it off the end of it like this. So that fish could have been anywhere from probably where my frog is sitting, could have been right underneath it, or it could have been all the way over there around that cattail. That popping noise, it sounds real similar to a bluegill eating fry or eating minnows or eating bugs on the top of the water, and it's something that triggers his instincts that it's a predator. You know what I mean? A bluegill is a predator, especially around a bed. So they'll come from a good ways away because they hear that pop, especially on a good, nice, calm day. You know, we're back tucked behind some grass here, and the calmer it is, I think the farther they will come for it. And it's something about that sound triggers them, and it's something natural that they do not like, and they know it's a predator, and they know that it could eat the eggs, it could eat the fry, or it can, you know, it's just a nuisance around a bed, so they can't stand it. Another aggressive one. Not a big one, but he got it. Got me out of my shoes too. Another little popping perch fish. So we're on the windier side of this patch of grass, and I made the cast up there on the point and working it down. And it, like I said earlier, when it gets a little bit choppier and there's not so calm, you kind of lose your distance on the top water. So I was popping it a little bit quicker and a little bit harder, and just covering some water. It wasn't really a high percentage area in my mind, and so I was bringing it through there a little quicker, and it smoked it. Actually, it hit it really, really, really hard. Probably one of the better strikes today as far as aggressive wise. So I might have to speed it up a little bit and give them a different look also. On these windier sides where the pop just doesn't carry as far in the water column. You're not going to call them as, you know, from as far away. So maybe have to give it a little more of a pop to call them in. Oh gosh, dude. Oh, it might not be that big, but it's acting big. So that one is probably a fish on a bed that is very protective. May have been caught already, but she had a. I mean, I didn't even hardly move. And she's just grabbing at my tails. I don't think it's that big. It's just probably a male, and it's guarding its bed. So it's not trying to eat it by any means, but it wants to push it away from the bed. It wants to hurt it, injure it, whatever it is. It doesn't want it around that area, but it has no full commitment to the bait on eating it. It's just fully protecting maybe some fry or a bed. I didn't see any fry jump in that particular spot, so probably on a bed. Around a lot of us is a lot of deeper water, and then we have these little high spots with grass. Basically, where there's no grass, there is actually some underwater emergent grass, hydrilla, maybe a little bit of eelgrass. What happens is they come up from the deeper water and they come up around the shallower, higher spots and spawn around the grass. One, they have to spawn shallower because of the sun and water clarity and stuff like that for their eggs to hatch. And two, they naturally just like to be shallow, and they feel more protected around grass. So with a lot more cover, you know, is better for them to feel protected when they're during the spawn and after the spawn and pre-spawn when they're coming in. They like to feel protected. Either deep water makes them feel protected and thicker vegetation. So that's what kind of two keys. I mean, they got to be up there warm enough where their eggs can hatch, and the sun is a big deal with that. Clean water is a big deal with that, and good vegetation, good hard bottom. You need all that combo for a good area like this for spawning habitat. A lot of times when you're fishing a bait like this, you can't get in too big of a hurry. You want the bait to do its work, so popping it and letting it sit is part of that. So you can't get in too big of a hurry and just pop continuously. Most days they're not going to be that aggressive on the bait, and you're not going to allow the bait to call a fish from the distance allowed when you're continuously moving it away from it, because by the time he even feels the vibration of the pop or the sound, hears the sound of it, it's too far away for him to relocate or even be a threat to the bed or whatever it may be. It's just too far, and you don't want to work it out of their strike zone. And basically the only way you can do that is just by fishing this bait too fast. You always have to be aware of everything that's going on, because even 4 or 5 foot away from this bait, you can see one tick a reed or hit some of the needle grass, and it'll give you an indication to slow your bait down and let him come to it, because he just heard it. And it's something that, out in open water you can't take advantage of. But anytime you're fishing around, thicker vegetation, be observant, because a lot of times, especially a bigger fish, he'll show himself because the grass moves. I mean, he moves water when he's coming. So a lot of times it keeps me from getting surprised by some of these bites, and I'm more prepared to set the hook and ready and got my line right and make sure I took up all my slack, and I'm more prepared for a bite like that if I can see him coming from a distance. So definitely you got to pay attention when fishing any kind of topwater bait, because any little swirl, any little grass movement, something like that can give you an idea when the fish is going to bite the bait. And I speed that thing up sometimes and pop it like 3 or 4 times in a row. It hasn't worked this week, but I can get them to commit sometimes if they're just following, and then it's like all of a sudden it goes from one speed to another, like it's running away. Sometimes that'll get them to come up and show themselves, or they'll just commit to it right off the bat. But there's a lot of different things you can do to trigger bites on this bait. You can really just dead stick it, and it works well too. It's just every day is different. Every lake is a little different, and all the fishing is different. There's 3 or 4 retrieves that I do. I either do a good constant retrieve, a slower like this, and then like really slow. I mean, that's about it. And then if I can't get them to eat it on one of those 3 retrieves, then it's something that I'm not going to force. I'll pick up a swim jig or a thunder cricket or even an ocho worm or something and start pitching it around on fluorocarbon if it's really that tough. If it was sunny today, I'd be punching some of these mats. I mean, it's just every day is a little different. The conditions, you just got to fish conditions, and we just happen to have pretty nice conditions for a topwater frog today and topwater perch. And my personal preference for the best weather for a pop and perch or a topwater bait in general is what we have here. We got overcast conditions, kind of light rain, light wind. When it gets too windy, a topwater bait, in my opinion, it can work well still, but it loses its sound. It doesn't call fish from a distance like it should, whether it's a walking bait or a walking frog or popping perch. I mean, any of those topwater baits, it's better when it's calmer. I like it this is perfect. Just a light wind, light ripple, or calm. Just something that I don't have trouble working my topwater. If I'm having trouble working my topwater, usually I have to put it down. Little. Thought he was bigger when I hit him on the grass. Another popping perch fish. Little male. It's fun. It's a fun bite though. Whether they're 8 pounds or 8 inches, they all hit it pretty hard. Give me a mini heart attack, especially when that one didn't show itself. Maybe because it was so small and the grass wasn't moving that much. I couldn't see it coming, but he hit it good. hit it like a big one. In my opinion, a bass that's sitting on the edge of a mat is an active one. You know, he's positioned himself where, I mean, he's in an active feeding mode, in my opinion, or he's in an ambush point, or I don't know. It seems like if you get around, like when you get on a good bite, you start catching a lot of fish on the edge of the mats and stuff instead of way back up in there. And I just think when they're biting, that's where they like to be. It's just on the edge of it. Maybe their whole body tucked underneath and just their head sitting just outside. I do use a stiffer rod, especially we're in a lot lighter stuff than normal. At Okeechobee, what I was throwing this thing in was like dollar pads and eelgrass. And in summertime, I dropped down to a 7.3 medium heavy Pro TI to throw it on when I'm throwing on bluegill beds and a lot less open. Like I can get away with it here for sure. A little bit lighter of a rod, so you don't. If you set the hook too hard, you'll jerk a hole in their mouth, and when they jump, they'll throw the frog. Most of the time you do that, you lose them if they're not big, or if you overhook them, just dragging that braid through their mouth. It's just something's got to give, and it's probably going to be their mouth because over the metal hooks and the braid and the rod. Little guy. Can't stop catching them.